We've got a lot of cricket to cover.
Have we? Or have we?
Yes, we do.
I don't.
I
All
don't
right.
know. Maybe. Right. Okay. Cold open. It's cricket. We're back. Oh boy, it's the T20 World Cup, and it's all about that rain. Yeah. The only games you want to cover are always going to be rain affected. That's the best place to be if you want to cover all the rain stuff. Um,
They should stop
oh,
holding these competitions in islands that rain.
and host them in Ireland
Yeah.
instead. But I don't know about you, but I think the world was pumped for this game. I think everyone I spoke to was like, "Oh, I can't go to work today. I need to stay at home and watch England versus Australia, the ICC T20 World Cup 2022." It's been the talk of the town, even though I feel like 95% of people probably don't know it's happening.
I bumped into one person who said they stayed home to watch Afghanistan Ireland,
Oh,
and that was on
rookie
at
mistake.
yeah, and that was on at 5 o'clock.
Yeah. Oh, you missed it. Rain. It's frustrating because as cricket perspective, it would have been, I think, a goodish maybe game. I think they should just take what the results were in the previous bilateral series, which
Yeah,
England won. I think you
yeah.
should use that as the instead of Duckworth Lewis. Just you lost last time. England win this one. So there's not a lot to say. It rained. The only thing I think worth noting is about what this means for going forward. It means that both England and Australia are on tre points. You see me fingers there, tre. But it means that although they're on the same, England have a superior net run rate. Australia's is still pretty bad. But here's the caveat. England probably have the harder games. They have to play Sri Lanka and New Zealand. I think New Zealand is next, whilst Australia have Ireland and Afghanistan. Both teams I don't think should really be taken lightly, but you'd probably expect Australia to win both of those at home. I think maybe Afghanistan have a bit more of a tricky case. And England versus New Zealand's always going to be a close game. And Sri Lanka on their day probably can beat anyone. So it is all to play for, isn't it, Mr. Suresh Raina?
That is assuming the next two games don't get rained off as well.
This is a good point. But if they do, England go through because of net run rate.
All right then. And
That's all fine.
England struggled against Afghanistan and Ireland, so they're not a given anyway.
Well, no, exactly. Obviously, I think it probably depends where they're being played. I can't say off the top of my head. I know England go to Brisbane or Sydney next, but tomorrow is a massive game, which we won't cover, even though it'll be sunshine. We're in Sydney, but you've got New Zealand and Sri Lanka in that group. So if New Zealand were to lose, then that really kind of opens up a whole other can of worms. But New Zealand haven't played since they won their first game last week. And England have played technically 3 games. Afghanistan only played once and they've had 2 of their games washed out. It's a bit of a mess, isn't it? But it would have been fun today just hear a little random shootout of 5 overs aside and see how England potentially would have changed it. But alas, here we are.
I was excited to potentially see Phil Salt not play again.
I was hyped to see exactly the same team because it's only 5 overs. But it was the kind of game that I think if we'd done 5 overs, Australia would have won it, and it would just been like. Ugh. But at least if England get knocked out, we can blame it on rain because we would have beaten Ireland. You can't say they wouldn't, and we would have beaten Australia on form. So
I
it's
mean,
rain's fault.
Would we have beaten Ireland? We are objectively the worst European team.
It's got to be broken sometimes. I think we would have won it in that. We would have got ahead of the rate in that over. I think because Mo was on it, and I think we would have been fine. But that's my probably biased opinion. But next game, I want to see Livo at 5. That is what I want to see. Even though in my team for the tournament he wasn't in it, I now want him at 5. But yeah, any predictions going forward based on today's performances?
I mean, I think we're going to see a bit more cloud cover.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of thunderstorms.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it's going to rain.
Probably, yeah. Well, they're getting out of freaking Melbourne, which is a good start. And everywhere else is good weather, and Melbourne's just got the most rain it's ever had, I think, maybe since records began. Maybe I'm making that up, but it's been something ridiculous. It's been its wettest October in ages. It's almost like trying to squeeze in a T20 global tournament at the very beginning of their season. Maybe isn't the best thing to do. It's like holding the World Cup here in friggin' April. It's like
I think logistically this World Cup's been a bit weird. Like to have 2 games in the same stadium, to have a potentially washed out day is just a bit silly. If you hold them in 2 different stadiums, you can at least have one game go ahead if one's rained up.
I agree. Yeah, I don't understand the need of having them always double headers. They all want to get the MCG money, which doesn't make any sense because you're not going to get MCG money from friggin' Ireland, Afghanistan.
Exactly.
No discredit to them, but you're maybe going to get a couple of thousand people show up, and then people trickling in for England, Australia later in the day. It's not gonna get you that revenue of like India, Pakistan, is it? So
yeah, and like there's been another game. I think it would have started around 7 p.m. Western time. I think it was in Perth, which meant it would have started in Eastern Australia around 10 o'clock and finished about 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous considering you're holding the fucking tournament in Australia.
Yeah. And you're not making it accessible for everyone in Australia.
No, like I think Perth natives would be happy that they've been given a bit more focus, but then move it a couple of hours ahead. And it's perfectly fine. It just feels like they made the start times later so they can reach more of an international audience,
100%.
being England and India.
Yeah. Well, it's exactly the same as earlier in the summer when India and England played a test match at Edgbaston, the one-off. That started half an hour earlier so they could get the most kind of Indian audience. It's all about international viewership at the end of the day, and that's India and England are probably going to be the other 2 countries that can be bringing in that most viewership. I think I agree that it's a mess. I think first of all, don't have 2 games hosted in the same city on the same day. And those late times are nonsense. But yeah, based on that, I reckon England are going to win the World Cup. Based on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing to say for England wise. I reckon it'll be same team next week on Tuesday, and we'll be back to cover that one. So since we've not got any actual cricket today to talk about because both games were washed out, there was cricket yesterday that happened. So we're going to do a quick cover up of what's a good feature name? Here's your T20 World Cup roundup for games we weren't going to cover.
Yeah, nice and snappy.
Yeah.
We cover all the niches that no one else will.
Yeah, and I think we've only missed one. There's only been a couple. Well, there's 3 games happened yesterday, isn't it? So South Africa beat Bangladesh quite comprehensively. Riley Rosso got 100, smashed 100. India and India and Netherlands played. Netherlands bowled all right. They were kind of restricting India for a few, about 60 odd for 2 off 10, and then Sky and Kohli absolutely smashed it, and that was quite comprehensive in the end. But quite rightly, the only game people are talking about is Pakistan v Zimbabwe. Pretty good game, that.
That's all right. Pakistan usually do quiet, casual, run-of-the-mill games, don't they? Nothing.
Just get Pakistan to play every game in this World Cup, and you've got the best tournament you've ever seen in the world.
And they haven't been rained off yet. So
and one of them is the MCG. But yeah, man, this was a great game. And I wouldn't call it an upset because you got to look at the form of Zimbabwe, especially over the first round. They also beat Australia in a series they played a few weeks ago. Same with Ireland. I wouldn't say Ireland's an upset. You've always, all the kind of, these 2 aren't associate teams, they are technically full members, but if you want to call minnows, all the kind of work they do behind the scenes, all the qualifying tournaments they've got to go through, all those kind of bilateral series, all that kind of stuff to really earn their stripes. They completely deserved these wins, and I thought Zimbabwe were terrific yesterday. Won by 1 run, which is absolute scenes. Few things. I mean, everyone knows the scorecard, but I'm going to give you some stats. So in Pakistan, we really got back in the game because I think Zimbabwe started off really well. They were rocketing along the first few overs, but then Mohammad Wasim got 4th bowled really well. He didn't play in the first game, came in for this game. And Zimbabwe lost 4-0 at one stage at 95, which is good. But he managed to scramble to 130, which is some going. And then Pakistan's kind of troublesome chase, which has been kind of a test of the Perth pitches, because England also struggled when they were chasing against Afghanistan. And then Pakistan struggled a lot here. Sikandar Raza got Freefer, bowled really well. That's his third man of the match of the tournament, which is pretty great. Brad Evans in that final over was absolutely fantastic. We'll talk about that final over in a minute, I'm sure. But also, I think, a little shout out to Craig Irvine. Within that last over, there were two fantastic pieces of fielding. The first ball initially, when they needed 11 off the last over, first ball was absolutely smashed. Looked like it was going to go for 4. I think commentators also called that's 4 runs. Craig Irvine absolutely legged it from long on, mud on, mud off, and managed to pull it back, and that was only 3. There's also a hit down the ground, which he stopped from going for 4. That's exactly what you want, especially from your captain. That just gives you that extra little lift. And then he only needed 4 from 4. And then it just got absolute scenes. But Brad Evans bowled an absolutely terrific bouncer, kind of out of nowhere. He'd been bowling all these cutters and suddenly really bangs on into the pitch, pace on, completely took batter by surprise. But it just felt like that was going to happen in that over to Pakistan. Like, it felt like this is too easy. This is too simple to like for you. There's going to be some kind of drama here. And lo and behold, it was definitely drama. I don't think I felt that nervous about a team I don't support before, but I just wanted viscerally just Zimbabwe to win. And yeah, I was thrilled. But yeah, what were your thoughts on that kind of last over, and I guess the game in general?
I mean, it wasn't even just the last over. It was like the last 5 overs as well. It's Nogaradza as well, or something like that. The left arm.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
Like, he was
one bad ball, which went for 6. One bad ball.
Like, him leading up to that final over was fantastic. And Pakistan needed like 30 off 20 at one point, maybe the last 4 overs, before getting it back to 4 from 4. But like you said, Irvine really set the impetus and the standards in that first ball of the last over, saving that for just to bring it down to 3. Like that one run literally won it for them.
literally, yeah, definitely. And I don't know if we've gone to a super over or not, but just that last throw, like, it wasn't a good throw from Raz. I mean, he threw to the right end, but it really came off a bad length for the keeper. Then he fumbled it, and you're like, oh, they're gonna scrape it home, and they managed to get it at the last second. It was just, it was tense. And just that kind of pure, like, happiness and joy and passion when they won as well was just exactly what you want to see from a World Cup, which is such a shame that so many games we called off, because the games that we've seen have by and large all been really competitive and really close. But I think this for me is the game of the tournament so far. I think Zimbabwe absolutely deserved it, absolutely smashed it. I mean, I think that pretty much means Pakistan are staring down the barrel. They really need results to go their way. They need to win a game first. That'll probably help. But yeah, it was scenes, and it's nothing less than Zimbabwe deserved. I really, really enjoy watching them. I think what we said about them before, they are vibes. They're the vibes of this tournament. But no, I'm really, really happy for them.
Like, since the qualifiers as well, or first round, or whatever you want to call it, the qualifiers, or the pre-drinks.
Round 1 of the pre-drinks of this World Cup.
Like, Raz's been on some proper form in those first few games, and he's just continued it. Through here, bat and ball. He's been one of those players that, from one of the smaller countries, you just sort of get attached to, and you can follow through the rest of it. Why not dream of getting to the semis now? Like, you just 100%. Have to play India. That's fine.
I mean, I think there's probably a decent chance. Like, if you look at it, they've played India. No, they haven't played India. They've played South Africa and Pakistan. They beat Pakistan, and it was rain effective for South Africa, so they got a point against South Africa. So those are 2 games that probably going in, you'd expect Zimbabwe not to win. So those are 3 points they've already got. They've got Bangladesh to play, which I think they're probably on par, if not slightly more on form than Bangladesh at the moment. They've got Netherlands. You're back to beat Netherlands. And then you've also got obviously India. I feel like I'm missing another team.
No, that's it.
Is that it?
Yeah.
So let's say they lose to India, which, no shame. You'd back them to beat both Netherlands and Bangladesh. You'd probably do, especially after this performance. Probably, I mean, their batting maybe is a slight issue, but bowling wise, they're right up there. I would love to see them get through to the semis.
Oh, for sure.
That would be incredible. So, I mean, they need. I don't know if they would need India to beat South Africa, or South Africa to beat India, and that would really kind of open the can of worms, I think, because then you would have probably more teams on the same number of points. But either way, come on, Zimbabwe.
Yeah, it should be resting on the Bangladesh game. You'd say they're favourites for the Netherlands game.
Yeah.
So if they can get over Bangladesh, then it's a really
if they beat Netherlands and Bangladesh and only lose to India, that means Zimbabwe's only lost 1 game, which is absolute scenes. I think that's incredible. Absolutely incredible. So, I mean, absolutely good luck to them. But yeah, I can't wait to see when they next play, to be honest. I don't know when it actually is.
On the flip side, Pakistan need to get their shit together.
Oh God, it's a bit worrying for them. It's Baba and Rizwan both haven't performed in the first 2 games, especially that India game. That's such an important set the marker, and they both failed in that game. Didn't perform in this one. When you're only chasing 130, you just want one player to bat through. Shah Masood almost did it, but when you're losing your 2 real experienced openers at the top, and when you're batting below that, it's a bit suspect. This is kind of always going to happen. So they've got problems from coming into the tournament being like probably one of the favourites. They could be heading for an early exit. Interesting. So prediction wise, who do you reckon is going to be the final 4? Obviously Zimbabwe are shoo-in. Realistically and hopefully, let's say that.
I mean, for England's group, I just can't tell, because there's been so many of those games rained off. I would have thought England would beat Australia. I think they beat Sri Lanka and New Zealand.
Yeah.
I think it'll be New Zealand, England from the first group.
Yeah.
I think India are more or less nailed on at the minute.
Yeah, I think so.
I think they've kind of snuck through as favourites for the whole thing now.
Yeah, probably.
Like,
yeah,
how well they played against Pakistan, or how well they fought back to win, or how well Kohli.
Well, yeah. And again, he played really well yesterday, so you got to think like Rahul's not in good form. Sharma got some runs yesterday, but didn't look at his fluent best. You are relying heavily on kind of Sky and Kohli in the middle, so that is a fundamental. And they are still missing their top bowl, like Bumrah or Jadeja. So you could still say there are cracks in that team if they come with someone really of good quality. So I think you're probably right. It could probably be England, New Zealand, India, South Africa. I think South Africa has suddenly hit form from nothing. But hopefully, probably England, New Zealand, South Africa, Zimbabwe would be fun.
I think that's the most likely. But if Sim pull off those 2 wins, well, we think they can.
God, we can hope. We can hope. It would just be fantastic for like cricket in general, and I think for all is ever. You don't want just England, Australia, India, another Pakistan, New Zealand, whatever. Something to really break the norm would just be. They obviously don't have to go on and win it, but to get into that kind of last 4,
No,
would
they
be
have to go on and win
they
it.
have to go on it. Sorry, yeah.
I
It needs to be it has to be an Ireland and Zimbabwe final, otherwise pointless. But to have them in their knockout stages would be just incredible for the game, and just shows that these teams need more opportunities. They need more test matches. They need more series away from home in places like India, England, Australia. Like, I can't tell you the last series we played against Zimbabwe. I could not even. It might be 2003.
It was probably on Cricket Captain.
I think it was probably Anderson's debut. So yeah, probably Cricket Captain, probably in some other different universe, but these teams need more games. And whether that's through like tri-series of having England play South Africa, Zimbabwe, or that kind of tri-series factor, or England play Ireland and Scotland. Doesn't always have to be England, but England just my example because they're the money. Yeah, I think that's, you've really got to look at expanding the game for those teams, because otherwise we're just going to watch England, India, and Australia for the end of time, and I don't want that. Thank you very much.
No, I really think the Lions should be playing against teams like Zimbabwe and Ireland and Afghanistan, because the England Lions isn't that far off from a test capable squad either, which neither is Zimbabwe, neither is Ireland, etc. And it gives both the Lions squad and those sort of second tier countries that haven't got test status or yet to grow and improve. And then hopefully those smaller countries do get test status and they can play in the bigger games and then get even better and make the sport as a whole competitive, which you would think is a good thing for the bigger teams as well, because that pushes them
massively. Of course it does. You want a competitive all-round team with, you don't want just to say like, oh, Zimbabwe going to rock up for a World Cup and that's the only time you see them. You want them all the time. You want them to make these kind of battles and rivalries. So speaking of rivalries, I've kept this from you, even though I'm not sure how you avoided it because it has been everywhere. It's been the most ridiculous piece of news I've ever seen. So you think of rivalries in sport, obviously England, Australia, probably you got Manchester Derby, all that kind of stuff, Spurs, Arsenal if you want, all these kind of things. Yesterday was the start or the end of a feud, a huge feud between Pakistan and Zimbabwe, one that's been going on since 2016. Jamie, how familiar are you with Mr. Bean?
Wait, I think I saw something to do with Mr. Bean. I was just like, I'll shrug it off. But what? What?
So let's start the story, how it all began, how it broke into the internet verse. Pakistan, they posted a tweet of a few of their players training ahead of the Zimbabwe game, saying on to the next challenge. And a Zimbabwe fan replied, as Zimbabweans, we won't forgive you. You once gave us that fraud, Pac Bean, instead of Mr. Bean Rowan. We will settle the matter tomorrow. Just pray the rain will save you. So someone replied from Pakistan, what happened, brother? And which he replied, they gave us Pac Bean instead of Mr. Bean on one of our local events called Agriculture Show. To which someone else replied, WTF is Pac Bean. So this is a bit like Just Not Cricket. So the issue dates back 2016 when Pakistani comedian Asif Mohammed, known as Mr. Pac Bean in Pakistan, performed a comedy routine in Harar impersonating British actor Rowan Atkinson, obviously Mr. Bean. So obviously we have the fallout on the Twitter with the Zimbabwean complaining about how dare they give us. We felt embarrassed in front of our families. Mr. Pac Bean was given a police escort ahead of the event at the Harar International Conference Centre, big up, which reportedly cost fans $10 a piece and was a complete flop. The drama quickly went viral, leading to the match between two nations being described as the Mr. Bean Derby. But the highlight of this is when Zimbabwe won, the Zimbabwe president tweeted, what a win for Zimbabwe. Next time, send the real Mr. Bean. I told you wouldn't get it. I told you wouldn't understand the rivalry.
I have no words.
Let me see if I can send you a picture of him and you can have a reaction.
What the fuck? I was thinking before, oh, maybe they're gonna take the piss out of like all the tea adverts that were happening during the Pakistan England series,
Oh,
or
no.
like Raza or said something. I don't.
It made it to Sky News.
It made it to the Zimbabwean president. What?
Pac Bean.
Oh. That's not like a terrible likeness, to be
No,
fair.
it's good. He's done good. He's done good. But I love the fact that this has been brought up from 2016 from this like just random Zimbabwe fan from nothing. This is obviously something that's been grating him for years. It's like, oh, now is my time to really get back at these damn Pakistan cricketers. I just thought it's made main news. It's made the president tweet about it. I can't believe it's on freaking Sky, like Sky News.
How is this a what has happened?
It completely blew up on the Twitterverse. Like, so just in terms of like ratio, the Pakistan tweet had like 10,000 likes, and then this guy's reply has got like something like 40,000. We will never forgive. We're embarrassed in front of our families.
This is what cricket's all about.
Yeah, Mr. Bean.
Petty rivalries about a comedian that looks like Rowan Atkinson.
But this will be the thing forever. Whenever Pakistan plays Zimbabwe, it's always going to go back to Mr. Bean. And I don't really understand why Pakistan was sending Mr. Bean. What is this agriculture event? Why is there such onus? And why has he got a police escort? Even Rowan Atkinson probably wouldn't have a police escort. Like, what did he do? Did he just stand up and be like, "Oh, Boone"? Like, oh, Mr. Bean doesn't speak.
I reckon they're just really into their beans, like the growing of, and that's where the agriculture sort of thing came
but
in.
Why does Pakistan send him? I don't. So they've gone to Pakistan. Oh, can you get Ronan Atkinson for us? Oh no, but we got Mr. Packbean. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that.
I'm looking forward to this becoming the Sean Bean derby over the next 6 years.
Oh dear. Well, if you got any Mr. Bean memes you want to send us in the meantime, just go to That's Just Not Crick Pod. I think this is fantastic. I've been living for this. This World Cup is just offering more and more and more. But yeah, we'll be back. We're episode 4. Maybe there'll be another internet phenomenon by then. But yeah, this World Cup's good. Just wish there's more games of cricket being played. Any final thoughts, Jamie, on cricket or Mr. Bean?
Honestly, that's taken all thought out of my head. It's my thoughts are consumed by the Mr. Bean rivalry now. The fuck.
Oh, the Mr. Bean series, the 5-match Bean series, the Ashes, the Beans. We'll see you next episode. Bye.